Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and finding some peace today. Our story comes from an old man named Harold Easton, 79, a veteran. What happened to him is almost unbelievable until you hear it for yourself. So, get comfortable. Maybe pour a warm drink, and let's dive in. Noon in Yuma, Arizona, burned like a furnace, and the ground at the small gas station on South Avenue A was radiating heat, reeking of molten asphalt and smoldering oil. A rusted, battered Dodge pulled up to pump 3. An old man stepped out, gaunt and weathered, draped in a frayed soldier's coat faded by time, his old veteran's cap tilted, shading deep eyes that held the alertness of one who'd stared down the war. He grabbed a gas can, moving slowly, each step deliberate, like a soldier still on patrol long after the battle's ended. In the truck bed lay a few old military med kits, a crumpled Marine uniform, and a carefully sealed letter. Silent amid the dust of years. No one saw it. No one asked where he was going. They only saw a grimy old man dressed like a drifter driving a peeling truck. The station clerk, a squinting youth, watched from the counter, smirking, then muttered to a co-worker, "This guy looks sketchy. That truck, probably hauling stolen stuff." No greeting, no kindness, just a cold call. "Got a suspicious old man here. Beat-up truck. Weird behavior, come check it out." Within 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars screeched in, sirens blaring through the searing heat, dust swirling. Officers stepped out, hands on holsters, eyes sharp with suspicion. Opened the truck bed. Papers. Harold silently handed over his documents worn, expired, the license plate nearly illegible. One officer snapped, not waiting for a reply. "Where'd you get this stuff?" "Got permits." Another yanked a med kit from the bed, tossing the uniform aside, flipping it like he was hunting for fakes. "Soldier, huh? Antique gear." They smirked. A crowd gathered, some filming, others live streaming. A man in a green t-shirt shouted, mocking old guy stealing army junk, selling it for scrap. Laughter cracked, harsh as a hammer. A teen with earbuds swaggered up, knocking Harold's cap off, playing war hero. Grandpa. The cap hit the dirt, dust rising in the sun. The station fell silent for a beat. Harold said nothing. He bent down, retrieving the cap with trembling hands, brushing it clean, clutching it to his chest, as if holding something once sacred. His eyes didn't waver, staring west to the horizon, where sunlight shattered in the quivering air. No one saw the silver ring on his finger, etched with 2nd Marine Logistics Group. No one knew those old medkits had saved countless soldiers in Iraq's deserts. The police pushed him against the truck, interrogating him. "Who are you? Where'd you get this stuff?" The live stream rolled on, captions flashing. Sketchy old man busted at Yuma gas station. A child in the crowd asked her mother, "Why are they tying his hands?" He looked sad, no answer. Harold clutched his cap, his other hand quietly touching the sealed letter in his coat pocket. Its words stirred. Alive. A promise. A meeting. A duty he couldn't fail. He'd once driven through gunfire to bring others home. Now, he was cuffed for a rusty truck for being too silent. But what they didn't know was that he was still on his way, keeping a final vow. And this story is just beginning. The fluorescent light in the interrogation room flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the gray concrete floor. The air was thick with sweat, bleach, and a faint metallic tang. Harold Easton sat silently on a cold iron chair, hands clutching his faded veteran's cap like an unbroken vow. Before him, a heavy wooden table held scattered items, old military med kits, a crumpled Marine uniform, a sealed letter pulled from his truck, and a creased, faded photo teetering on the table's edge like a memory dropped. Two officers by the door whispered, calling him the suspicious old man. But Harold didn't hear them. His eyes, deep and still, pierced the peeling wall, returning to another place, a place of sand, heat, gunfire. The door swung open. A young intern entered, hair tied high, clutching a file as if her breath depended on it. She meant to hand over the documents but froze, her gaze catching the table's clutter. Her hand brushed the photo, a young soldier, blood-soaked, bandaged in a desert by another man. A battlefield medic. That man was Harold, decades younger. She touched the photo's edge, hesitating, then looked up at him. "Could this be you?" Her voice caught as if afraid to trust her instinct. Harold didn't answer. He tilted his head faintly. A near nod. His fingers turned the old silver ring on his hand, etched with faded words, 2nd Marine Logistics Group. At that moment, memory surged, vivid, sharp as a blade. 1991. Iraq's burning desert. Bullets roared. Harold, a combat medic, drove a military truck through a hail of bombs, its bed filled with groaning wounded, blood seeping into seats and steel floor. He didn't just carry supplies, he carried men. Hope. Once, he knelt by a dying soldier, clutching a radio, choking out a promise to a mother in Iowa. "Your son will live," and he kept that word. He never spoke of it after, needed no medals, wanted no fame. For Harold, honor wasn't in tales told, but in silent acts on the edge of life and death. The intern set the photo down, and her eyes changed. No longer probing, no longer wary, but filled with gratitude, as if she'd glimpsed something sacred the world had overlooked. An older officer stepped quietly forward, his gaze on the ring, brow furrowing. "I've seen that symbol at a military funeral," he murmured but said no more. Harold sat, still as stone, his hand guarding the sealed letter in his coat pocket. A letter he'd carried for years, not to read, but to deliver, to the right person, at the right time. The shame from the gas station lingered a raw gash beneath his coat, but he didn't need to explain, didn't need to shout. Those who'd truly known war would understand silence, too, was a form of sacrifice. He wasn't here to justify. He waited for a call, a person, a moment when the past would unfold and every eye would bow. Dusk settled over Yuma. Hot wind sweeping the police station's back lot, stirring red dust and searing heat from the ground. Slanted sunlight cast long shadows on the weathered brick wall. Harold Easton stood silent amid the crowd, his gaunt frame swallowed by a frayed soldier's coat. Hands trembling, but clutching his faded cap like a fragment of memory no one grasped. Nearby, his rusted Dodge truck sat towed to a corner, its bed open, med kits scattered on the dirt, crumpled Marine uniform dusted, and the sealed letter pinned to the hood, forgotten like a final plea. A senior officer emerged, voice cold and metallic. "We're impounding this vehicle for suspected stolen goods." He spoke loudly for the reporter's ears. Cameras swiveled to Harold. Flashes flared. The buzz of shutters and whispers hissed like a broken hive. A young reporter shoved forward, mic raised. "Where'd you get this stuff, soldier? Looking like that?" The crowd, many from the gas station, gathered again, phones live streaming, old faker playing war hero. "Who are you fooling?" A teen with earbuds stooped, grabbed Harold's fallen cap, and stomped it. Dust rose, silent, grimy. The group roared with laughter. Another voice cut in. "War legend, looks like a beggar." Harold didn't react. His gaze swept the crowd, then fixed on the western horizon, where the sunset bled red beyond distant mountains. He stepped to the truck, trembling hands placing the letter on the hood. A simple act. But to the observant, It was as if he laid down a piece of his soul. A young officer snatched the letter, waving it mockingly. "What's this, your heist plan?" He didn't wait for an answer. Harold stayed silent, his eyes unblinking, deep and heavy, carrying memories of Iraq's deserts, where he drove through gunfire not to fight, but to leave no one behind. At the crowd's edge, the intern from the station stood, clutching her files, lips pressed tight. The same young woman who'd seen his photo days before. She wanted to step forward, to speak, but the jeers and shouts battered her, each one a blow. Another reporter yelled, "Speak, who are you?" By the act, Harold bent down, retrieving a torn scrap from his cap, brushing it gently as if wiping away the shame clung since noon. His anger didn't burst. It coiled, silent, as it had when he clenched his jaw driving through Ramadi's firestorm. Each trip a gamble between life and death. The wind surged fiercer. The sealed letter slipped free, tumbling in the gust, skittering past the feet of those filming and mocking. Harold didn't stoop to retrieve it. He didn't need to. His eyes stayed west, where the sun sank, where memories lived. And somehow, he knew something greater was coming. Not because he sought vindication, but because he never needed it. He only needed to keep his promise. Dusk in Yuma. The hot wind scoured the police station's back lot, swirling red dust and baking the cracked earth. Sunlight slanted low, casting long shadows across the weathered brick. Harold Easton stood silent amid the crowd, his gaunt frame dwarfed by a frayed soldier's coat, hands trembling yet clutching his tattered cap like a memory no one grasped. Nearby, his rusted Dodge truck sat in a corner, bed open, med kits strewn like discarded trash, crumpled Marine uniform dusted, and the sealed letter pinned to the hood, forgotten like a final plea. The crowd lingered, cameras rolling, jeers unbroken. "Old man, confess stealing army gear," one shouted. Another mocked, "War hero." What a show, flashes stabbed like knives, white-hot across his face. But Harold didn't answer. His eyes stayed west, where the sky blazed red, blood-soaked as a dying day. Amid the chaos, he waited for something unseen. Then a rumble rose from afar. No police sirens, no civilian cars, the heavy, steady throb of military compressors commanding the air. Two vehicles roared into view, a black armored SUV and a sand-painted Humvee, tearing down the road, dust billowing. They halted at the station gate, tires screeching like torn space. The SUV's door swung open. A man stepped out, a Marine colonel, dress uniform crisp, chest gleaming with medals. The setting sun glinted off his brass, his stern face radiant with authority. The crowd choked silent. Voices died, cameras faltered, some dropped phones. The colonel strode to Harold, stopping before him, standing at attention, wordless. Then he saluted, slow, precise, steeped in reverence. No one laughed, no one spoke. Only the wind remained, and the fading light caught the silver ring on Harold's hand etched 2nd Marine Logistics Group, shining now. A beacon never dimmed. The colonel knelt, retrieving the sealed letter from the dirt, then the torn cap. He brushed them clean, presenting both with both hands, a solemn rite. Their eyes met no words needed. They understood each other as survivors of the same battlefield. The colonel turned, his gaze ice-cold on the station's senior officer. "Sir, we've been looking for you." The word struck like a blade, clear, final. No one smirked, no one stirred. He pointed to the rusted Dodge. "Those med kits are emergency aid for our unit at Camp Pendleton." He didn't steal them. He drove from Tucson to deliver them, over 300 miles. In silence. The air stilled. The young officer who'd mocked Harold stepped back, face ashen, hands shaking, speechless. Reporters lowered cameras, some turned away. At the crowd's edge, the intern clutched her files, hand over mouth, tears streaming not from shame, but from witnessing something too vast to name. Harold said nothing. He nodded faintly, accepting the cap and letter, his gaze meeting the colonel's as if reclaiming lost time. The colonel guided him to the SUV, its door open. Harold stepped up, unhurried, steady. A man who knew he was leaving not from disgrace, but from a place that finally saw him. A child in the crowd snapped to attention, saluting instinctively. No one prompted, no one jeered. Yuma, at that moment, stood frozen as stone. A reporter whispered, almost to herself, "Who is he?" No answer came. The SUV rolled away, dust trailing. The letter rested in Harold's hands, light but heavy with a vow that saved lives. In his chest, the storm of shame. Now only calm and honor. The dim yellow light in the small police station office flickered on peeling walls, casting a murky, somber glow as if piercing the depths of a lifetime's memories. Harold Easton sat silently on an old wooden chair, his frayed soldier's coat clinging to his gaunt frame, his tattered cap placed neatly on the table beside the sealed letter and weathered medkits. The Marine colonel, in crisp dress uniform, stood before him not as a commander, but as one who'd been brought back from a place no one should survive. Officers, reporters, the young intern all stood hushed. None dared break the leaden silence, heavy with the weight of a salute that had humbled a town. The colonel spoke, his voice deep, slow, clear as a march through desert sands. Harold Easton isn't just a soldier. He's why I'm here. He recounted. 1991, Iraq's battlefields. A young lieutenant himself lay gravely wounded, pinned by artillery fire, blood soaking his stretcher. And Harold, then a medical transport officer with the 2nd Marine Logistics Group, drove his truck through a hail of bullets 3 times without hesitation, bringing the entire unit to safety. One man, one truck, one choice to never turn back. The colonel paused, his voice softening, almost to himself. He knelt by my hospital bed, phone in hand, telling my mother in Iowa, "Your son will live." He swallowed hard, voice breaking, and I lived because he kept his word. The room remained still, no one stirring. The light caught the silver ring on Harold's finger, etched 2nd Marine Logistics Group gleaming faintly, a spark of honor in the gloom of misjudgment. The young officer who'd stomped Harold's cap bowed his head, shoulders trembling, tears spilling. The intern, who'd seen the old photo, covered her mouth, whispering faintly, "I knew it. I knew he wasn't ordinary." An older reporter, still holding his camera, lowered it to the floor, eyes red. No one spoke, but all felt the weight. The colonel continued. That rusted Dodge, those med kits, not stolen. Harold repaired them, bought them, and packed them. For Camp Pendleton, where young Marines he once served with, and some still fighting, needed them, not for duty, for a promise, to those he saved and those he couldn't. Harold spoke then, his voice quiet but firm, heavy as Ramadi's sands. In a single line I just kept my promise. That was all, no defense, no plea, no need for belief. The ring on his hand was proof enough, no titles, no plaques, just his gaze. Moments later, the senior officer approached, shoulders slumped. He bowed deeply, voice quaking. "We sincerely apologize. We didn't know." Harold nodded faintly. No blame, no anger. He understood that the noblest acts are often misjudged before they're honored. In the room's faded light, Harold rose, slow, clutching his cap as if embracing an entire battlefield. His eyes drifted west, not to a place, but through time, to where Marines called him Doc, where Camp Pendleton stood, and where, living or fallen, they remembered Harold Easton. He needed no medals, no applause, only one thing to keep his vow. And today he had, as he'd done years before. If this story touched you, share it so men like Harold aren't forgotten. Subscribe to our channel for more tales of loyalty and respect. In the comments, tell us who taught you about unbreakable promises. Each story you share is a breeze, keeping their flame alive. A month later, under the ancient oak by the small gas station on South Avenue A in Yuma, Arizona, pale sunlight filtered through the leaves, scattering broken rays on the scorched earth that once bore witness to shame and silence. Where Harold Easton stood, he was gone now, but his presence had never been clearer. On a clean stone foundation, a new bench stood, its inscription simple yet heavier than any monument, to the one who drove quietly through fire so others could come home. No name, no rank, just a truth etched in words he never spoke. Harold's story didn't make the evening news or Grace Major papers, but it lived in barbershop talks, Walmart parking lots, and family dinners where those who turned away now bowed their heads. The teen who'd knocked off his cap stood before a recruiting office, application trembling in hand. His eyes, for the first time, not arrogant, but resolute. The young officer who'd mocked him past the bench each morning, head lowered, a silent atonement, an unspoken thanks. The intern who'd first seen his photo, bandaging a young soldier, kept it in her wallet, tucked among her most vital papers, a reminder that some must never be forgotten, even for a moment. At a small cemetery near Camp Pendleton, sea winds whipped salt and dust, and the afternoon sun stretched long across gray headstones. Harold stood silent before one name, his hand resting on the stone as if touching an old comrade's back. His frayed soldier's coat, the silver ring, etched 2nd Marine Logistics Group, and those eyes deep as a battlefield gazed back through time. The sealed letter now opened, land folded in his pocket. Its final words, from a fallen friend Doc, "Don't let us be forgotten." And he hadn't, not with speeches or honors, but with quiet drives, with a silence that needed no proof beyond himself. The stone bench under Yuma's oak became a resting place, not just to sit, but to pause, to think. Truck drivers, delivery workers, and kids on bikes passed by, some unaware of his name, yet their eyes lingered on the inscription drawn by something nameless. They might not recall the story, but they felt it. Some heroes seek no glory, and their promises outlast any shame. They say Harold's still out there, driving his old truck and delivering aid to units he once served. He may not return to Yuma, but his gaze, the gaze of Doc Easton, lives in every eye that once scorned. Then looked up, learning anew the first lesson of respect. His story, from humiliation to honor, reminds us that honor needs no medals, only a heart that never quits. If it kills you, share it so men like Harold Easton are never forgotten. And if someone taught you about an unbreakable vow, leave their name in the comments. Each name you write is a breeze, keeping their flame alive.